A cosplay event is underway. There are many photographers, all eager to capture the best shot. A guy named Kazuya is especially excited to take photos of the top female cosplayer at the event. He's already snapped a few pictures but wants to get her to look directly at him. So he calls out to her and asks her to pose. The cosplayer complies and strikes a pose for him. Just as Kazuya is in the middle of taking photos, someone starts poking him. Feeling annoyed, he turns around only to see several beautiful girls dressed in bunny girl costumes. One of them even looks really upset with Kazuya. That's when Kazuya suddenly wakes up. Turns out it was all just a dream. He glances over at the camera on the bedside table. At the end of that summer break, he feels like he's discovered something that changed him. The next morning, Kazuya walks down the stairs. His younger sister, Kano, and their parents are already in the living room, getting ready for their day. After everyone is ready, Kano runs out the door, heading to school. It's a bright morning, and Kazuya also walks to school along with other students. A girl approaches Kazuya and greets him. Her name is Haruka. She asks how Kazuya's summer break went. He replies that he didn't do much. Haruka then shares that she saw Kano every day at club practice, but she never saw Kazuya there. Haruka notices that Kazuya is carrying a camera. Kazuya explains that his dad recently bought a new camera, so he gave Kazuya the old one. Haruka points out that the camera Kazuya has looks like the kind professionals use. As they're talking, a girl on a bike rides up behind them and greets them both. Kazuya and Haruka return the greeting. As she rides past, a girl comments that they look really close, walking to school together. She says she's always wanted to experience a school life like that. Waving, she tells them she'll see them at school. Haruka is confused, not knowing who the girl is. Kazuya also admits that he has no idea. Haruka then asks Kazuya to take her picture sometime. Kazuya hesitates for a moment but eventually agrees. Haruka is thrilled and runs off, catching up with her friend Tomo. The two exchange greetings and ask each other how they've been. But suddenly, another girl runs up and hugs Haruka from behind, startling Tomo. Haruka is known for her cheerful personality and good grades. She's also a top member of the tennis club and is popular among her classmates. Haruka and Kazuya used to run together at the park when they were kids, but over time she seemed to grow more distant from him. Kazuya recalls Haruka's request to be photographed earlier and wonders if this connection with the camera will change things. He smiles to himself. A flashback shows what happened the day before. Kazuya was playing darts in his room when Kano came in, asking to borrow a pencil case. Kazuya let her take one from his desk. As she was looking, Kano spotted the camera and recognized it as their dad's. Kazuya explained that the camera was his now. Kano was jealous, complaining that Kazuya always got the expensive stuff. Kazuya told her she should be upset with her dad, not him. Annoyed, Kano declared that she would make their dad buy her new clothes. She then asked if Kazuya had taken any photos yet. Kazuya admitted he hadn't. Kano found it strange, thinking it was a waste for their dad to give him such a nice camera. Kano then took the camera and pretended to snap a photo of her older brother, saying that she wanted to be photographed. Kazuya agreed and Kano felt really happy, striking a pose right away. The next morning was bright and clear. Many students were walking to school, including Kazuya, who attended Kuba High School. It was a private school that could be found almost anywhere. But what set it apart was the freedom given to its students to express their passions through club activities like tennis, basketball, swimming, and more. The woman who had been cycling earlier and greeted Kazuya appeared surprised and quickly apologized. It turned out she was a new teacher at the school and had accidentally entered the wrong classroom on her first day. Kazuya, who was in that class, just smiled. Now he knew that the woman who greeted him earlier that morning was the new teacher. It had been 40 days since Kazuya last attended school. He felt like nothing had changed at all. Time continued to pass as it always had. Same class, same uniform, and the same school. Kazuya picked up his camera, then ran through the hallway, almost bumping into a girl. In Kazuya's mind, the only thing that might be different now was that he saw everyone as a photo subject. Kazuya ran past the sports field and spotted a girl practicing rhythmic gymnastics. He quickly took the opportunity to snap a few photos. He managed to capture several shots before the girl noticed him. They made eye contact and both exchanged greetings. Kazuya explained that he was out and about looking for photo subjects, and then he saw her dancing. They started chatting outside. The girl was surprised when she found out Kazuya was Kano's older brother. Kazuya also realized that the girl was Kano's friend. She introduced herself as Sakuramai from Class 1. The two of them shared some laughs, enjoying each other's company. Meanwhile, a boy was watching them, hiding behind a board. It seemed like neither Kazuya nor Mei noticed him. The scene shifted back to the classroom, where everyone was focused on the lesson being taught by their teacher. Kazuya, however, seemed drowsy as he followed along. During the break, Kazuya used his camera to snap a few pictures of various subjects. He felt much braver when holding the camera, like it helped him break out of his monotonous life. While taking a few shots, Kazuya happened to spot a woman on the rooftop holding a camera, photographing something as well. Suddenly, Kazuya heard a girl call him Dart Soon. He recognized the voice. It was Minoka. She was frustrated because she had called Dart Soon several times, but Kazuya had responded. Kazuya then told her he'd prefer it if she stopped calling him Dart Soon. Nanoka replied that the nickname suited him since he played darts so often. The name just fit. Nanoka then asked what Kazuya was holding and if he had picked up a new hobby. Kazuya explained that it was a camera his dad gave him. Nanoka asked if Kazuya had taken a lot of pictures with it, and he said yes. Then Nanoka told Kazuya that it seemed like he had forgotten to photograph something important. Naturally, Kazuya was confused and asked what she meant. Nanoka teased him, saying, a healthy, kind, beautiful girl, shining in the prime of her youth, playing softball. Kazuya looked around, trying to find the person Nanoka was talking about. Seeing his reaction, Nanoka told him there was no need to be shy. He was allowed to take as many photos of her as he wanted. Kazuya finally understood Nanoka wanted to be photographed. She immediately brightened up, excited to be the subject of Kazuya's camera. He agreed, and Nanoka began posing with her softball moves for him to capture. However, in the end, she stuck out her tongue and made a silly face at the camera. Kazuya was startled, but that funny face was the shot he managed to capture. Nanoka laughed, saying she was just messing around and felt like doing it. She then said goodbye and headed back to practice softball again. Kazuya looked at the photo he had just taken. Suddenly, someone jumped from a tree into the bushes. It was a mysterious-looking guy wearing glasses. Kazuya and the guy then walked down the school hallway. The guy said he admired Kazuya for getting people to ask him to take their pictures. He said Kazuya had a bright future with his camera. He also apologized for following Kazuya's every move that day. Kazuya responded that he hadn't noticed at all. The guy then advised Kazuya to broaden his perspective and be aware of his surroundings. Don't just focus on the object right in front of him. The guy finally introduced himself as Kuda Hiromichi from Class 3 and said he was the president of the photography club. Hiromichi then offered Kazuya a spot in the photography club, believing that Kazuya had great potential. Kazuya was surprised by this offer. Hiromichi encouraged Kazuya to think about how the daily routines at Kuba High School seemed to be stuck. The students worked hard on their club activities, rushing home afterward. Many lived similar lives day in and day out. But Hiromichi imagined how a strong gust of wind could blow through, bringing change and excitement. Hiromichi then invited Kazuya into the photography club room. Kazuya scanned the room from one side to the other. He wondered why there was a curtain dividing the space in two. Hiromichi told him not to worry about it. Other club members were there too. A boy named Nakagawa Ida from Class 2 introduced himself. He was a short guy with a special talent for taking low-angle shots. His nickname was Low Angle Nakagawa. Then another boy introduced himself as Azuma Takahashi from Class 2. Due to his height, he was skilled at taking photos from high angles. His nickname was Boo Blimps Azuma. Hiromichi explained that borderline eroticism is aesthetics. Borderline eroticism is art. Then, another member suddenly appeared mysteriously in the middle of the group. It was a girl named Cheetah from Class 1, and her nickname was Stealthy Cheetah. Kazuya introduced himself, and Hiromichi explained that Cheetah's specialty was stealth photography. It's about blending into the background and photographing an unsuspecting subject. Kazuya commented that it sounded a lot like sneak photography, but Hiromichi and the others quickly rejected that term. They clarified that they didn't hide their cameras in suitcases or plastic bags, and they only took pictures of people in public areas designated by the school. Plus, they always got the subject's consent before releasing the photos. Kazuya was still a bit unsure, but he began to understand more. Proudly, Hiromichi asked, "What do you think? Isn't everyone here amazing?" He invited Kazuya to become part of the club. Hiromichi also mentioned that he knew Kazuya was childhood friends with Mimi Haruka, who was a school idol. Plus, Kazuya was close friends with Masaki Nanoka, a star of the softball club, and Sakura Mae from the rhythmic gymnastics club. Kazuya hesitated. Hiromichi kept urging him, saying that the photography club was a lot of fun. Kazuya started to imagine all the girls at school he could photograph, but his fantasy was interrupted when a girl suddenly appeared from behind the curtain. She introduced herself as Kurebayashi Katsumi from Class 3, the president of the photo club. She told Hiromichi to stop teasing Kazuya. Of course, Kazuya was annoyed since Katsumi had barged into the club room without warning. Kazuya became even more confused. It turned out there were two clubs, the photography club and the photo club. Katsumi explained that she had spoken to the student council president to create the photo club because Hiromichi didn't want her in the photography club with him. That's why all the official school photos were taken by the photo club. Kazuya concluded that this meant the photo club was the official one. Hiromichi immediately protested, saying that photography wasn't about being official or not. He also argued that the photography club was a well-known, respectable group. Katsumi agreed, adding that the photo club didn't have enough members. One of their members, Ru, was already in the volleyball club, so technically they weren't even an official club anymore. Ru, who was standing next to Katsumi, mentioned that she could quit the volleyball club anytime, but Katsumi wouldn't let her. Katsumi then asked Kazuya if he wanted to join the photo club. That way, they would be one step closer to becoming an official club. Katsumi then talked about the beauty of nature, which would be a perfect subject for them to photograph together. Hearing this, Hiromichi protested, saying that there's nothing more beautiful than borderline eroticism. Katsumi wasn't backing down either and pointed out that all the members of the photo club were girls, meaning Kazuya would have a fun time with them. Hiromichi and Katsumi both exclaimed that they were pursuing true beauty. Kazuya became more confused as everyone awaited his answer. Kazuya started imagining, did he really want to take pictures of the beautiful girls at his school? Was that even allowed? Ru then pulled Katsumi aside, saying that boys shouldn't be in the photo club. Katsumi argued that gender had nothing to do with someone's love for photography. Hiromichi continued to persuade Kazuya, saying that an artist must always express what's inside. Kazuya felt the pressure mounting as he tried to decide which club to choose. Deep down, Kazuya thought he didn't want to take weird photos, but he was still very confused. Finally, Kazuya said that he felt like joining the photography club. Hiromichi and Nakagawa were thrilled, welcoming him with open arms. Nakagawa said he was ready to teach Kazuya all about cameras and everything he needed to know. All the members of the photography club warmly accepted him. Katsumi respected Kazuya's decision. She mentioned that Kazuya had fallen for Hiromichi's persuasion, but she added that he shouldn't hesitate to say hi to her. Even though they were in different clubs, their love for photography was the same. Kazuya thanked her. Katsumi and Ru then pulled the curtain and returned to their club room. Kazuya sat down thinking he might have just joined a crazy club. He started worrying, was he going to be okay? Later that afternoon, Kazuya was walking down the school hallway looking at the photos on his camera. By chance, he bumped into a girl walking down the stairs. Kazuya realized she was the girl he had seen earlier on the rooftop, taking pictures of the sky. The girl confirmed this and mentioned that she was a member of the photo club. Hearing that, Kazuya immediately knew this girl was Hikari. Surprised, Hikari turned and asked how Kazuya knew her name. Kazuya replied that it was a long story. Kazuya continued walking through the hallway when he noticed a girl slumped over a desk. He recognized her as Tomo, but what confused him was that she was sitting at Haruka's desk. Tomo slowly stood up and looked out the window with a weary expression. Kazuya was shocked to see that Tomo was crying. Still gazing outside, Tomo asked if Kazuya could keep a secret. She wanted him to promise not to tell anyone, especially Haruka, that she had been crying at Haruka's desk. Kazuya agreed, but his curiosity got the better of him and he asked why. That afternoon, Haruka was visible from the classroom window competing in a tennis match on the court below. Tomo then asked if Kazuya could keep it a secret if she told him why. With a determined look, Kazuya agreed. The morning at Kuba High School was bustling. All the students were busy with their own activities. Everyone seemed happy and energetic, except for Kazuya. That morning he yawned, feeling sleepy. Kazuya noticed something unusual. Tomo, who normally used the front entrance, was taking a detour through the back door of the classroom, even though her seat was at the front. Kazuya remembered the promise he made to keep the secret that Tomo had shared with him. The scene then shifted to the sports field, where Tomoe was. Meanwhile, Kazuya was in the classroom, changing into his gym clothes. Just then, Nanoka burst into the room, calling out Dartsum, but quickly covered her eyes when she realized Kazuya was in the middle of changing. Kazuya approached her after seeing what happened. Nanoka explained that she wanted to borrow Kazuya's English textbook. Normally, she borrowed from Haruka, whose notes were neat and easy to understand. However, Nanoka couldn't find her, so she decided to borrow Kazuya's book instead. Kazuya agreed and told Nanoka to grab the book from his locker. Nonoka went in and took the book, and Kazuya walked out of the classroom. In a hurry, Kazuya ran down the stairs. By accident, he bumped into Muroto and almost collided with her. Naturally, Muroto was annoyed, and Kazuya quickly apologized. Kazuya knew that the woman named Muroto was the president of the student council. Muroto scolded him for not following the school rule of walking on the right side of the hallway. Kazuya was confused. He didn't know such a rule existed. Muroto explained that the rule was stated in the first student handbook in the section on school life, which said, "No running in the hallways or on the stairs. Always stay on the right side." Muroto then suggested that Kazuya read the student handbook. Kazuya was impressed and asked if Muroto had memorized all the school rules. Muroto confirmed this, as she was the student council president after all. They then parted ways, each heading to their own destination. Kazuya muttered to himself, saying that Muroto was too strict. Near the shoe locker, Haruka was seen panting with a softball equipment bag by her side. Seeing this, Kazuya offered to help, but Haruka said she could carry it herself. Kazuya felt embarrassed when his stomach suddenly growled. Haruka grew concerned, but Kazuya reassured her that he was just hungry because he hadn't had breakfast yet. Smiling, Haruka asked if it was true that Kazuya had joined the photography club, mentioning that Kamen had told her about it. Kazuya confirmed it. Haruka knew this was the first time Kazuya had joined a club. He hadn't been in any clubs since elementary or middle school. Kazuya explained that the club president had been so persistent in inviting him that he couldn't refuse. Haruka laughed and asked what the photography club did. After thinking for a moment, Kazuya said that the club president mentioned something about preserving the youth of the students. Haruka remarked that it sounded amazing and offered Kazuya the chance to photograph the tennis club whenever he wanted, as she wanted him to preserve her youth as well. As Haruka was about to lift her softball equipment bag, something caught her eye. It was a bright reflection. Kazuya noticed it too, and after investigating, they realized it was coming from Nakagawa and Azuma's cameras. They were secretly taking pictures. Kazuya quickly moved to shield Haruka from their cameras. Nakagawa and Azuma were frustrated by this. Swiftly, Kazuya decided to help Haruka carry the softball equipment bag to the field. Nakagawa and Azuma could only watch them in silence from behind the shoe locker. Internally, Kazuya remarked that the photography club was much more suspicious than he had expected. Once outside, Haruka noticed that Kazuya was still wearing his indoor shoes. She kindly suggested he change into his outdoor shoes. Haruka's friends had already run over to help her carry the softball equipment. Kazuya said goodbye and ran off. Haruka thanked him as he left. Kazuya couldn't focus during the soccer game because he was so hungry, which caused him to get hit in the face by the ball, leaving him with a bruised face. Unexpectedly, Kanon walked by, laughing at her older brother. Without even looking, Kazuya knew it was Kanon just from hearing the bell charm on her phone. Holding his stomach, Kazuya said he was so hungry that his stomach was growling. Feeling sorry for him, Kanon pulled out a pack of jelly for him to drink. Of course, Kazuya was thrilled and eagerly drank it. Kanon had originally brought it for herself to enjoy after her morning practice, but luckily for Kazuya, she hadn't gotten around to it yet. As Kazuya was enjoying the jelly, Muroto suddenly approached him. Startled, Kazuya almost choked. Muroto then recited the school rule that prohibits eating and drinking outside of break times and said it should only be done in the cafeteria. She told Kazuya to finish the jelly in the cafeteria and then walked off. Kanon was impressed by how strict Muroto was when it came to enforcing school rules. Kazuya glanced at the bell charm Kanon had, admiring the fact that she still carried it around. Kanon explained that of course she kept it because it was a gift from her older brother when she was very little. It was incredibly valuable to her. After school, Kazuya took pictures of Mai as she practiced rhythmic gymnastics. Mai noticed him and asked him to talk outside. She informed Kazuya that members of the photography club were banned from the gym during the rhythmic gymnastics practice. Surprised, Kazuya asked why. Mai explained that some of the photography club members kept taking pictures of them from embarrassing angles. Kazuya immediately thought of Nakagawa and Azuma doing that. He assured Mai that he wasn't involved in any of that. Mai was relieved, saying she trusted that Kazuya wouldn't take photos like that. Kazuya felt a bit frustrated since he had just started learning photography, but now he had to deal with these restrictions. Mai said she would speak to the club president and request special permission for Kazuya to enter. Kazuya was both shocked and happy to hear this. Mai hurried off to talk to the club president right away. As soon as Mai went back into the room, Nakagawa suddenly appeared from behind a board saying Kazuya did a great job. Nakagawa had been hiding there the whole time. He mentioned that so far, Mai and Kano were the two most popular girls. Nakagawa congratulated Kazuya for getting special permission to bypass the ban. Kazuya asked who Mae Kano was, figuring that Mae referred to Sakura Mai, but who was Kano? Nakagawa answered that it was, of course, Kanon. Hearing this, Kazuya was so shocked he nearly choked. Nakagawa was confused by Kazuya's reaction, so Kazuya explained that Kanon was his younger sister. Naturally, Nakagawa was stunned. He then jokingly imagined what it would be like to marry Kanon, realizing that in such a case, he would have to call Kazuya Oni-sama Big Brother. Kazuya was horrified and immediately protested. Kazuya felt like a lot had changed since he started photography. It wasn't just because of the camera, but more because he had become more proactive in approaching people to take pictures of them. It felt like a completely different world. At dusk, Kazuya was walking and happened to see Hikari taking pictures of the shoe lockers. Kazuya greeted her. Hikari kept snapping photos toward the light source behind the door. Kazuya then asked if the photos she just took used the backlight technique. Hikari confirmed it. Kazuya mentioned that he couldn't get good shots using that technique. Everything he took turned out too dark. He asked if there was a trick to it. Hikari explained that there wasn't anything wrong with dark photos as long as the atmosphere was captured. She also suggested that Kazuya try using exposure compensation. Hearing this, Kazuya gained a better understanding. Kazuya said goodbye as he received a message on his phone from Hiromichi. The message said that after school tomorrow, all photography club members were encouraged to gather in the club room for an emergency meeting. Kazuya had a bad feeling about it. The next morning arrived and Kazuya couldn't sleep all night because he was worried about the meeting. He was anxious about what they might say to him. While walking to class, Kazuya accidentally ran into Haruka, who was still wearing her swimsuit and holding a towel. She explained that she had forgotten her headband and came back to get it. Knowing this, Kazuya wanted to leave quickly, but Haruka stopped him. She said she could be a model for Kazuya. Kazuya looked puzzled and asked if Haruka wanted to be photographed in her swimsuit. Haruka confirmed this, reasoning that graver idols often wear swimsuits during photo shoots. Kazuya hesitated. Haruka admitted feeling a little shy but promised to do her best because she wanted to help Kazuya. Kazuya then asked why Haruka was going to such lengths for him. Haruka said that she wanted to spend more time with Kazuya like they used to. She wanted him to notice her. The photo session took place at a pool. Haruka posed in various ways for the photos. Kazuya, while taking the pictures, was amazed by how good they turned out. Haruka seemed nervous and shy, but she pushed through. Eventually, Kazuya felt they had taken enough photos. Haruka asked Kazuya not to show the pictures to anyone, as she had done it all just for him. Kazuya agreed. Haruka said goodbye and ran off, leaving Kazuya behind as he continued to look at the photos. Outside, Yoshida smiled as if she knew everything that had just happened. The scene then shifted to the classroom, where Haruka stood reading a literary piece aloud. Kazuya watched her and smiled, remembering the previous day when Tomo shared a secret with him. Tomo had confessed that she wanted to be like Haruka, beautiful, kind, skilled at tennis, smart, and admired by many. Tomo believed that if she sat in Haruka's seat and saw the world from her perspective, she would change. However, it didn't work at all. Tomo grew so jealous that she suddenly began to cry. Haruka had always been kind to her, which made Tomo feel cruel. Hearing this, Kazuya lowered his head in silence, understanding how Tomo felt. Suddenly, the teacher hit Kazuya's head with a book, snapping him out of his daydream. After school, as planned, the photography club held a meeting. Hiromichi led the meeting and all club members were present: Nakagawa, Azuma, Uchida, and Kazuya. The topic of discussion was the Miss Photogenic contest. Everyone seemed excited, except for Kazuya, who looked confused. Before the meeting officially started, Hiromichi instructed Uchida to check if anyone was in the photo club room. Uchida checked, and luckily, no one was there. Nakagawa then explained that Miss Photogenic was a tradition in the photography club, where they would decide who looked the most beautiful in photos and showcase their findings at the annual school festival. Hearing this, Kazuya felt sorry for them. Hiromichi then announced that this year's Miss Photogenic was Haruka. Kazuya was immediately shocked. Hiromichi said he had chosen her after careful consideration, calling her the true heroine. All the club members seemed to agree, except Kazuya, who didn't know what to do. Reluctantly, he accepted the decision. The next morning arrived. Kazuya's teacher complained because the classroom trash hadn't been taken out. Since it was Kazuya's turn to do it the day before, he took the trash out. After he finished putting it in its place, Kazuya thought this was an unusual opportunity to be allowed outside while class was still going on. so he decided to have a little fun before heading back to class. As Kazuya walked along the school wall, he noticed someone climbing it. Quickly, he grabbed his camera to snap some pictures. The climber turned out to be Miroto, the student council president. She panicked and told Kazuya to stop taking pictures. Then, out of nowhere, Miroto lost her balance and fell, accidentally landing on Kazuya. Both of them were startled. Luckily, neither of them was seriously hurt. While dusting off her legs, Miroto glared at Kazuya, telling him he better not have taken any pictures of her skirt. Kazuya assured her that he would never do such a thing. Kazuya then asked why Miroto was climbing the wall to get into the school. She looked nervous and unsure of how to answer. With a teasing smile, Kazuya guessed that Miroto was trying to sneak into school because she didn't want anyone to know she was late, so she chose to climb the wall instead. At first, Miroto denied it, but she couldn't come up with a believable excuse. In the end, she admitted that she was wrong to sneak into the school in such an illicit way. Hearing this, Kazuya felt a strange sensation he couldn't quite explain. To him, it felt oddly satisfying to beat Miroto at her own game. It was as if Miroto was now in the palm of his hand. Miroto then begged Kazuya not to tell anyone about what had happened. If people found out, her reputation as the student council president would be ruined. Kazuya promised he wouldn't tell anyone. Miroto seemed relieved and thanked him. She also asked Kazuya to delete the photos he had just taken. Kazuya refused, saying it would be a shame to erase them. As Kazuya turned to leave, he said goodbye. Miroto tried to stop him, but Kazuya kept walking, assuring her he wouldn't show the photos to anyone. Smiling to himself, Kazuya realized that fate had handed him his secret. He now knew Miroto's hidden flawed side. Nanoka seemed to be in a big hurry as she dashed down the stairs. When she reached the landing, she decided to jump to get to the bottom faster. But unexpectedly, Kazuya was coming up the stairs. He was shocked to see Nanoka leaping like that. The situation couldn't be avoided, and Nanoka couldn't dodge in time, resulting in their lips accidentally touching. Both of them tumbled down the stairs, wincing in pain. Nanoka apologized for not being careful. She also complained that her teeth hurt. Kazuya, surprised, mentioned that his teeth were hurting too. He thought maybe their teeth had collided. Nanoka confirmed it. That's when Kazuya realized they had just kissed. Nanoka also noticed it but simply smiled. Kazuya worried about her, but she said that maybe this was just how her first kiss story was meant to happen. Nanoka also admitted she was happy her first kiss was with Kazuya. Naturally, Kazuya was shocked to hear this. Nanoka then explained that she would have been sad if it had happened with someone she hated. But with Kazuya, it was okay. Time passed and Nakagawa, Azuma, and Kazuya were by the pool. Nakagawa was annoyed because there weren't any girls around. He had really wanted to take pictures of girls in swimsuits. He thought maybe they had arrived too early. Azuma speculated that maybe the girls weren't swimming that day. Nakagawa became disheartened and lost all enthusiasm. They decided to leave and Kazuya walked ahead quickly, not wanting anyone to see him there. Then, unexpectedly, he ran into Rina. Rina asked why Kazuya was there as she was sure it was her class's turn to use the pool. Kazuya made an excuse, saying he had left something behind. Suddenly from behind, an impatient Nakagawa pushed Kazuya to make him walk faster. Kazuya stumbled and nearly fell, accidentally grabbing Rina's melons, causing both of them to panic as Rina screamed. Kazuya immediately apologized, shocked that such a thing could happen to him. Rina tried to calm the situation, telling him it was okay because she knew it wasn't intentional. Kazuya could only nod. Nakagawa and Azuma were also stunned to see Rina there. When asked what they were doing there, Nakagawa quickly lied, saying they were helping Kazuya look for his lost camera lens cap. Rina accepted the explanation and admired their friendship. Kazuya and the others quickly left the area. As they walked, Nakagawa asked if it was true that Kazuya had actually grabbed Rina's melons. Kazuya replied, maybe. They were shocked and immediately jealous. Afterward, Kazuya was walking alone down the school hallway. He ran into Kanon and Mai, and they greeted each other. Kanon then reminded Mai that she wanted to tell Kazuya something. Mai told Kazuya that he had been granted permission to photograph the Rhythmic Gymnastics Club. Mai said she had successfully convinced the club president to let Kazuya in. Kazuya thanked Mai, but she also warned him to be careful. If he tried anything inappropriate, he would be banned from entering again. Kazuya agreed. Kanon and Mai said goodbye and hurried to class so they wouldn't be late. Kazuya continued walking, unaware that Uchida had overheard everything from nearby. In the school garden, Nakagawa, Azuma, and Uchida congratulated Kazuya. Naturally, Kazuya was confused about why he was being congratulated. Nakagawa explained that they had received intel from a spy that Kazuya had gotten permission to photograph the rhythmic gymnastics club. Kazuya was shocked, wondering how they could know about that. Nakagawa then pulled out 2 magazines as a reference for Kazuya. When Kazuya saw the covers, he thought they were adult magazines. Nakagawa denied it, saying they were just cosplay magazines. The models were intentionally photographed that way. Nakagawa went on, suggesting that Kazuya should learn what makes a good photo by reading those magazines. That was the least Nakagawa and the others could do for him. They were eagerly awaiting Kazuya's sexy shots of Mai. Hesitantly, Kazuya held the 2 magazines, but Nakagawa, Azuma, and Uchida were already walking away. Reluctantly, Kazuya accepted them. Later that night, Kazuya was in his room flipping through the magazines. He wanted to have some photos he could be proud of for their photography exhibition. Determined, Kazuya made up his mind to take more pictures to achieve that goal. The next day, Miroto was practicing diving at the school pool. She didn't realize Kazuya was nearby. Miroto scolded Kazuya for being at the pool while the girls were having their swim class. Kazuya defended himself, saying it was already lunchtime. Miroto hadn't realized she had been there for too long. Kazuya then complimented Miroto's diving, saying she moved like a professional diver. Miroto revealed that she had been a competitive diver at the school, part of the swim club, until last year. She had to quit because her duties as student council president became too overwhelming. Kazuya thought it was a shame, but Miroto said it was fine since there were far better divers in Japan and she wasn't that great. Kazuya expressed regret that he hadn't been able to photograph Miroto during her competitions. To him, her dives were impressive. Kazuya's gaze moved from her feet to her head, making Miroto embarrassed, and she covered her body with her hands. Kazuya quickly apologized. He remarked that Miroto, who was usually strict about enforcing school rules, seemed so different now. Then Kazuya asked if he could take a picture of Miroto in her swimsuit. Naturally, Miroto was shocked and refused, feeling embarrassed. But then Kazuya shouted illicit entry. Miroto panicked, thinking Kazuya was blackmailing her. She nervously asked what would happen if she refused. Kazuya didn't respond. Miroto continued, asking if Kazuya would make a poster out of the photo and stick it outside the staff room or email it to all the students. Kazuya actually said that sounded like a good idea. Miroto became even more annoyed, thinking Kazuya should have already come up with that plan himself. Kazuya repeated that he wanted to take Miroto's picture. Reluctantly, Miroto agreed. She asked what kind of pose Kazuya wanted. After thinking for a moment, Kazuya said, if possible, he'd like a sexy pose. Miroto was, of course, shocked and angrily protested, but feeling like she had no choice, she went along with it. Kazuya started taking pictures of Miroto with his camera. Miroto posed the best she could, though she was clearly feeling embarrassed. As she posed, Miroto told Kazuya to hurry up and take the photos. She didn't want to stay in those poses for too long. Pose after pose, Miroto continued while Kazuya commented that maybe things would be better if Miroto weren't so strict. Miroto retorted that cameras don't capture words, all while still urging Kazuya to finish quickly. Kazuya managed to take plenty of shots of Miroto in various poses. At one point, they locked eyes for a moment before suddenly, Hiromichi showed up, clapping his hands in admiration for Kazuya. Hiromichi also remarked that he never expected Miroto to have such a daring side, considering her usually strict and disciplined personality. Miroto tried to excuse herself, saying there was a reason for everything before running off and telling Kazuya not to show those photos to anyone. Kazuya agreed. Hiromichi again expressed his admiration for Kazuya, surprised that Kazuya could get Miroto to follow his directions. Kazuya just said that it was a long story. Hiromichi could tell Kazuya was hiding something and mentioned that maybe Kazuya's enthusiasm had reminded Miroto how she used to be. Hiromichi shared that Miroto was burdened by all her parents' expectations. Kazuya remained silent, listening to Hiromichi's story. The scene then shifted to inside the school, where Kazuya was walking with Haruka. Haruka was impressed, noticing that Kazuya was reading a photography book. She thought that Kazuya was really serious about photography now. Kazuya said that photography had become something he really enjoyed. Haruka's friend called for her, so she rushed off but told Kazuya to let her know if he ever wanted her to model for him again. Kazuya agreed and thanked her. At the end of the school hallway, Nakagawa and Azuma were seen mopping the floor until it was sparkling clean. After finishing, they walked past Kazuya and mentioned that tomorrow they would start Operation Mimi Haruka. This surprised and panicked Kazuya, who immediately started thinking of a way to stop it. That night, Kazuya was in his room, scribbling in his notebook. trying to figure out how to prevent Operation Mimi Haruka. He thought about it late into the night until he finally fell asleep. The next morning, Kazuya walked to school, yawning the whole way. He regretted falling asleep before figuring anything out, but remained determined to stop Operation Mimi Haruka. Near the river, Kazuya spotted Hikari taking pictures of the lake's scenery. When asked, Hikari explained that she was photographing the water's surface and told Kazuya not to mind her. She said this was the perfect time to capture the sparkle of the water's reflection in the morning sunlight. Kazuya continued walking and told Hikari to show him her photos sometime. The scene then shifted to the classroom where Rina was struggling to reach something from the top of a cabinet. She asked anyone nearby for help. Coincidentally, Kazuya was passing by and quickly helped her out. Rina mentioned that she was trying to get a steamer, but there was a box in the way. Kazuya held it steady while Rina climbed onto a stool to grab the steamer. Unavoidably, Kazuya found himself face to face with Rina's melons, making his face turn bright red as he couldn't look away. After she successfully retrieved the item, Rina thanked Kazuya. She then offered him a warm cup of tea. Rina explained that she needed the steamer for the Cooking Research Society, but Kazuya didn't see any other members around. Rina then admitted that she was the only member of the club. Kazuya was surprised and asked if the school allowed forming a club by yourself. Rina replied that it was possible as long as the student council approved it. She added that it was more like a hobby than an official club, and the student council president was very supportive. Rina said it would be amazing if students' recipes could be passed down to future generations. She also mentioned that cooking was just a hobby for her. Kazuya's phone buzzed, but when he looked at the message, he chose to ignore it. Rina then offered him one of the scones she had baked. However, Kazuya's hands were full, so Rina decided to feed it to him herself. Kazuya eagerly ate the scone, complimenting its delicious taste. This made Rina really happy. She proudly told him that everything was made with 100% natural ingredients, making it both tasty and thick. Kazuya agreed, especially with her comment about it being thick. The school bell rang as Kazuya was mopping the classroom floor. He received a message from Hiromichi stating that Operation Mimi Haruka had begun. Kazuya was tasked with bringing the target to the club room immediately. In his mind, Kazuya vowed to protect Haruka even if it cost him his life. He asked Haruka to help him carry the trash, and they walked down the hall, passing the shiny, spotless floors that Nakagawa and Azuma had cleaned the day before. As they passed the photography club room, Kazuya paused for a moment, looking around. Haruka, meanwhile, marveled at how clean the floor was, shiny enough to reflect her image. Kazuya shared her thoughts, thinking that someone could easily slip on it. That's when Kazuya realized something. He told Haruka to go back to class, but as he rushed towards her, he slipped instead. At that exact moment, Nakagawa and Azuma jumped out of hiding with a camera. As Kazuya fell, he desperately tried to block Haruka's lower half to prevent them from photographing her underwear through the floor's reflection. Unfortunately, this only led to Kazuya accidentally seeing Haruka's underwear from below. The scene then shifted to the photography club room, where the members were holding an emergency meeting. Kazuya sat there, looking like someone who was both flustered and amused. Hiromichi wanted to discuss why they kept running into problems whenever they tried to take photos of this year's Miss Photogenic Haruka. A flashback showed Haruka trying to wake Kazuya, who had fainted on the floor. Nakagawa commented that it was all Kazuya's fault for messing things up. However, Hiromichi understood since Kazuya was still new to the club. Hiromichi then decided to change their approach. Each club member would watch the target and look for any opportunity to take photos. Kazuya was shocked to hear this, especially concerning Machida. He knew this would be a much bigger problem now because he had no idea when Uchida or the others might go after Haruka. Determined, Kazuya resolved to protect Haruka no matter what. Later that afternoon, Kazuya was in the rhythmic gymnastics club room, taking some photos. He was practicing what he had learned from the magazine he'd been reading. Mai asked if the photos were turning out well, and Kazuya confirmed that they were. He thought the pictures might be useful for Mai at some point. Kazuya also promised to give the photos to Kano later that evening. Mai thanked him for taking the time to photograph her. She then shared that she had started practicing rhythmic gymnastics after graduating from middle school, so she wasn't yet familiar with all the moves. Rhythmic gymnastics, after all, is a competition of aesthetics. So far, Mai had only been focused on the technical aspects. She still didn't quite know how to perform movements that looked graceful. That's why Mai wanted to keep practicing. Kazuya assured her that he would continue to support her. He then left the club room, concerned that he might be disturbing Mai by staying too long. With that, he headed home.